Microsoft isn't exiting the console business, Xbox boss Phil Spencer reportedly told staff. Microsoft will reportedly continue to make consoles amidst claims of it planning to adopt a multi platform release strategy for first party games. Amidst reports of Microsoft bringing various first party games to rival platforms, Xbox chief Phil Spencer reportedly assured staff that there are no plans to exit the console business. Microsoft's plans to continue its console business, according to journalist Shannon Lyo, and it's claimed that Microsoft's strategy will involve Xbox hardware and multiple kinds of devices. The company held an internal Tuesday town hall where Spencer told employees that there was no plan to stop making consoles and that Xboxes would continue to be part of a strategy that involves multiple kinds of devices. This lines up with previous comments from Spencer where he mentioned Microsoft's aim to expand the reach of the Game Pass subscription service. The last couple of weeks have seen rumors circulating that Xbox games like Hi-Fi Rush, Starfield, Gears of War, and the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Great Circle could be headed to PS5 after it launches first on Xbox Series X and S and PC. This would mark a radical departure from Xbox's strategy over the last few years to keep its first-party games exclusively to its consoles and PC, and last week, Spencer announced that there will be an update on Xbox's future plans this week. We're listening and we hear you, Spencer wrote on X/Twitter. We've been planning a business update event for next week where we look forward to sharing more details with you about our vision for the future of Xbox. Stay tuned. Jeff Grubb of GameSpot's sister site, Giant Bomb, recently mentioned that Microsoft originally planned to reveal its new game release strategy at the end of February, although it appears this has been moved up to this week. I do want to read comments. H. Jeroman goes, why do fanboys of any product platform hate so much other products' platforms? That's valid. If it doesn't harm you, let it alone. By the way, I don't have to say what would happen without competition. Just one more goes, if the two big consoles ever decide to forego their backwards compatibility, then Microsoft will again stand a chance to win the console wars, given they fold out an enticing set of circumstances. So there's still hope, or fear if you are on the opposing end. Circumstances such as releasing HD remasters of old games quickly and something like a handheld for gaming on the go without the cloud, BS. And let's cut the BS. Of course, when you're trying to sell your product, there's always competition and always a war on sales. Most consumers have X amount to spend yearly on entertainment, and they are in competition and war to acquire your X dollars over the competition. Microsoft is changing the rules and twisting Sony's arms, and if they don't follow suit, then Microsoft may have the advantage if their quality AAA games ever come. Microsoft will release some of their games on competing platforms, and that will bring in more money for more projects, and Sony no doubtfully has to have an answer for this. And Stick 'em Up goes, they're not getting out of the console business yet. They absolutely will at some point. It doesn't make business sense for them to continue when they're that far behind Sony and Nintendo every generation. If they do decide to try another console up to this generation's and it flops again, it will be their last. Obviously, we know what's going on now. We know that they did bring some games to PS5, but it was like Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush. I forget the other one. What do you think of this?
Uh, well, obviously, it was obvious for a couple of years now that Microsoft's not going to exit out the console business at all. What they're going to try to do, and what they have been doing for the last couple of years at least, to what is already public knowledge, at least been behind the scenes, what we hear, uh, based on rumors, most likely, obviously, but this now it's turned into actual factual statements. Microsoft is going to gear towards being a publisher more than an actual gaming company of itself, making the games or having consoles or thereof. So once until this new console comes out next couple of years or so, after that, that's their last console. This is what we've been gathering over the last couple of years now, between you and I and Triple J. So it's
Well,
like
it's also going to depend on the success or failure of the next console, obviously. Um, But they said basically like Sea of Thieves, a Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush. Like I said, I forget the fourth game. Those were the games coming multi-platform, and it's like okay, these games, they are great games, but they also do depend like on a big player playing base, and they kind of peaked on Xbox, so they're sending those to other platforms so they can expand their player base. That's what Xbox is doing. Everyone was way off and blew out of proportion. Oh my God, Microsoft's going the way of Sega. Um,
No. Damn, Microsoft Xbox is based on a $3 trillion company of its net worth as of like last year or two. So Microsoft did not go anywhere as a company, let alone with their Xbox brand. So what are you guys panicking about? They're not like Sega, where Sega fucking dish out their resources so quick on so many different console attachments and sub generations and shit like that. Because Sega, they were trying to do the Sega CD, Sega 32 drive, whatever it's called, the Sega
32X.
cable, yeah, the cable service within the cable connected to the Sega console, then Sega Saturn.
That actually was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then they did Sega Saturn, then Sega Dreamcast,
Well,
and after
what happened is people with Sega, people were tired of being lied to. They were like, the Sega Genesis is great and it was a great console. Then they brought out the Sega CD. The Sega CD is going to be the future. It wasn't. Then they released the 32X. 32X is going to be the future. There were 34 games released for the 34X and 6 for the CD 32X if you happen to have both attachments. Then they were
yeah,
like, no, forget about that. Sega Saturn's going to be the future. And it wasn't. Then when the Sega Dreamcast came around, they were like, Sega Dreamcast is going to be the future. And people were like, we heard this already multiple
for,
times.
for the third time at least, yeah.
Yeah, and by the time that's what really, honestly, I think that's what really killed the Dreamcast is they lost so much fan support because fans just felt being lied to. The Sega Saturn was not the future, like they said. The 32X was not the future, like they said. The Sega CD, the technology wasn't there to make games on disc yet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and how many times can you have a company say this is going to be the future? You buy it, and then it turns out. I mean, like I said, the 32X had 34 games for it, and 6 CD 32X if you had the Sega CD and 32X. So like there were 40 games that worked on the 32X. 6 required the Sega CD, and the thing is, they had another console planned in between, which they canceled, which was the Neptune, which was going to be a third standalone 32X.
God
But they
damn.
canceled it and made it an add-on for the Sega Genesis.
Holy shit. I don't know about that part. Okay.
Yeah, the
Neptune.
32X was originally supposed to be its next console after the Sega Genesis.
Okay.
And the thing is, after the 32X, people were like, wait a minute, the Sega Saturn's on the way, Nintendo 64 and PlayStation's coming just around the corner. It's better to wait 6 months instead of buying the 32X.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny, back in the 1990s, but the internet just started happening. So not everyone had access to the internet to see different perspectives and different like reviews, things other than IGN and Game Informer, Nintendo Power, etc., Funko Land, so on and so forth. So people have to rely on the news, rely on the stores that go into to buy these games. So there was, because obviously that's what it controlled the media at the time, it was the TV, radio, and newspaper. But the internet within the last, from like 1995 until 2010, it was like it was creeping into the game industry's integrity, because they can't get taken advantage of people like they used to, because people started talking more and more on the internet and presenting more and more facts and perspectives and you name it. Like people will start to listen to more other people online rather than these gaming companies. And
Yeah,
now we got this SJW stuff coming to about. They can't do that stuff at all because everyone now knows what's up with the matter
yeah.
and since day
Because
one.
people are being sick are getting sick of being lectured to. Imagine that.
Yeah, maybe you could do that back 25 years ago with the Sega Saturn, the Genesis, and all those game consoles, but not this decade,
Well,
especially
you
this
really
decade.
can't even do it then because, like I said, that's what like the Sega Dreamcast was a great console, but it still failed, and it failed
Yeah,
because they didn't have the trust of their customer base that the Sega Saturn had, that the 32X had, that the Sega CD had.
yeah. Sega was being too greedy with their consoles.
Yeah.